Okay, thank you very much. I'll share my screen again and let's see what if it's working for you all now. I guess everything is okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, it's working.
This time we will be concentrating more on infantilization, which is a very different topic in nowadays and a very important one as much as a theory one. After some extremely difficult days, we understand that it's very encouraging to watch new films and especially children films in Turkish cinema. We are really very proud of them, each and every one. But one of these films in Gamonya, 2020, it depicts the story of a child hero who utilizes adventures in a fictional kingdom to overcome his issues in his real world. So the artists taking place in this film is the cast of BKM, the actors who are also having some training for drama and theater. And it's nice to have such films in Turkey as well. But what's wrong with the film? The film actually is a very successful one. It has 2.6 IMDb points, and it has a very high box office regarding the first 12 weeks time. However, the focus of this research is neither its success nor its box office or audience reflections. We will be concentrating on the content, the dialogues, actions regarding infantilization, and then it makes us think about if this movie is truly intended for children or not. So the infantilized adults and children are depicted in this film as youngsters who never grow up and refuse to accept the responsibility for their acts. Peter Pan syndrome, they call it, and it affects all of the children in this world of a fantasy world. This syndrome is a metaphor for not being able to grow up and being stuck in childhood. This is not only in this film, it's a kind of a philosophy nowadays regarding the whole transhumanism, etc., being or becoming a better human. The research on one hand tries to question and evaluate the linguistic and symbolic features of the film, and it also provides a qualitative and quantitative perspective while explaining the visual, symbolic and linguistic codes of the film. But of course 10 minutes is not enough for all of them. I would like to concentrate on the definition of infantilization as the act of prolonging an infantile state in a person by treating them as an infant, says Collins Dictionary. In other words, we need to concentrate on the adults being treated like children and children being expected to act like adults. These are just a few examples of infantilization frequently we encounter, especially in films and advertisements. Infantilization mostly serves to promote something else. For example, advertisements want to promote a kind of an object to sell. And the audience is preoccupied with something other. That's why they concentrate on the message and they don't understand the foolishness of the physical, mental, or social situation. Sometimes they lack some of the media literacy skills. That's why they don't bother it as a kind of a big problem or a real problem. And the more technology and hopes improve the quality, standards, and the length of human life, the more addicted they grow to the fantasies of the past or future, perhaps. Human beings dream of being a human being with better capacity by redefining and positioning themselves and eliminating their weaknesses, thanks to the influence of the old narratives, epics, and myths that are as old as humanity. So life expectancies, norms, and new narratives are all cradled by these thoughts and sentiments. Newly created works, of course, primarily attempt to nurture these feelings and thoughts as well. No matter how complicated life becomes, human beings never forget the innocence, freshness, and genuineness of childhood. Today's media presents a plethora of items that make it impossible for people to forget this, placing adults in the role of children and expecting them to greet practically everything as if they were seeing it for the first time. This notion of escape can be traced back to the early days of cinema and television as well. So we have so many different films. For example, Alice in Wonderland, The Spiderwick Chronicles, Chronicles of Narnia, Brave, Frozen, Maleficent are the previous examples. Now we have the film Gamonya. I will record.
The film examined structurally, functionally, semantically, and semiotically in order to determine the features that helps us classify it as a film infantilizing both the kids and adults in different ways. As a result, the focus of this study will be on cases of infantilization rather than the analysis of itself, focusing on the findings. Regarding the content analysis, focusing on the infantilization examples, a brief summary involves that almost all the actions and dialogue in the film has a kind of infantilization character. In the film Gamonya, the mystery setting awaits us in the opening scene where we have no idea where we are. The film begins with the scene of a young boy trying to develop his athletic dimension by himself around the seaside lighthouse. We first encounter Umut, the film's protagonist, as a young boy running with his dog. The storming waves appear to foreshadow impending difficulties. We catch a glimpse of his conversing with the granddad. Despite the environment, the seagulls around him, it's evident that he is a disgruntled child. It's as if he's announced his leadership and formed his own kingdom in his tranquility. The lively old grandfather, on the hand, who sings about how much he enjoys shaving, always looks in the mirror and shaves with a smile on his face. Umut, on the other hand, is in a hurry. That's why he knocks the door and reproaches his grandfather frequently. Even in this situation, the atmosphere and behaviors are immature and exaggerated. The adults in the film act like small children, while the youngster requests that the adults be reprimanded. Following that, we watch Umut go to his grandfather's room and search through his closet after learning that the shaving will take a bit longer. At this point, it's just a matter of watching Umut's adult behavior and putting the grandfather in the place of the child, much like parents who try to figure out what kind of mischief is being committed by messing up the rooms of naughty children. Umut is enraged when the prepared granddad joins him on the way to school, as we see at the conclusion. He is thinking himself to be an adult, desires from his grandfather a more transparent and independent field of action. His grandfather's motivation for accompanying him, on the other hand, can be characterized as gags and riddles, matching the cloud's shape to be something imaginary, or singing songs with the grandson. In this case, too, an adolescent is degraded to the status of a younger child. However, Umut isn't the only one that's being degraded in this plot. The grandfather's grown-up behavior and speech sound childlike, further reducing the grandfather-grandchild relationship. The trail that the grandfather has and the grandson are walking on a lovely forested path, yet it appears to be in the middle of nowhere still. It's difficult to believe that a child would walk all the way to school every day. Umut's infantilization can be attributed to his grandfather's continual attempts to activate his imagination and encourage him to be creative. How does that cloud appear to you? Just a cloud. I believe it looks like a rabbit riding a bicycle. Continually offering alternative solutions to the same question causes the grandfather to put himself in the position of a child, which Umut objects to. Whereas in these dialogues, Umut tries to speak as rational as possible, and as a person of his age, his grandfather tries to entice him into increasingly childish games. In fact, the lack of a real contact or shared platform between the grandfather and grandson makes sharing a true topic impossible. Grandpa, please understand, I'm not interested in fantasy games. Facts are more essential to me, Umut will say towards the end of the way. But dreams are lovely, his grandfather would remark, and when you can't cope up with reality, dreams will save you. Umut has no idea that he is continually being tricked because of his bizarre approach and refusal to provide him the facts that he requires about his mother and father. So he'll even say, "Can we continue, please? I don't know this gentleman," when he gets inside the van to go.
We may consider the axis of oppositions of the narrative regarding Herbert, for example, desire axis, communication and power axis, information or aim axis. And we see that we have the subject here as the happiness and sustainability of Gamonya, and as the object, happiness of Umut, the individual, and whether there will be a kind of a unification or attachment or separation, we will be seeing it at the end of the film. And regarding the assistants, the communication axis, Umut and Feriz are the assistants, and the disruptor is the Portka, and whether one or the other one will be successful or unsuccessful will be left to the end of the film. So the information are sent by Feriz. The receivers are the individuals with complaints, the little children all over the world. So when we consider genets, for example, discourse, story, and narrative arc, the discourse would be the plot and the order of the events, but of course the story is not told in the chronological order of the events, so the order, duration, and the frequency of the actions and the questions will be differing as each narrative part is coded in a different way, so they want to increase the impact level at the end. And when we consider the symbolic codes, for example, naming, Gamonya is one of the fiction names as in other films, such as Aldovia, Cambria, Calpurnia, etc. And water is another symbolic code represented in the film. It's the source of life, youth, innovation, civilization, mobility, and development. And there's a well used as a garbage. It represents both the depths and the deep subconscious and anger and worries of humanity. There are laughers and seekers, the happiness of a child, creativity and youth. There's a huge amount of research about that. A black dog represents friendship, wisdom, guide, trust, and news bringer. And there's the concept of escape, for example, escape for sports, games, films, stories, fantasy work. And there's also the potion, the elixir, change, spatial touch, etc. And we have the language as poetic as possible, narrative, exophoric and endophoric references, kind, there's kind of metonymy and humor in it. And we have the fairies as well. Full of miracles, change, and wish fulfillment, and divine justice. So you need to get back to the paper to see how all these combine in the film. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nilüfer Hocam. Again, for the prominent paper and the subject. Also, again, I will ask the participants, the listeners, that if they have any questions. Also, by the way, like if you have any question, like maybe you forgot your microphone off, so I have to warn you, like because not every camera is open, but I think. Okay. Thank you again, Nilüfer Hocam. So we will